Hello everybody and welcome to IT Support 102 CompTIA A+ Essentials. My name is Sean Jones and I'm going to be the instructor for this course. We normally are going to meet on Thursdays from 5:30 to 9:25 on the Oak Creek campus in room A124. This first week I am not able to make it to class. I had a previous engagement before I was assigned to this course, and I had a contract. I'm not able to get out of it, so I apologize for that. I have posted announcements on Blackboard. Everybody should have been emailed. I will also have a sign out on the front of the room, so hopefully everyone's going to get this information that they should not be going to class physically on Thursday night, but instead should be watching the two videos that I'm going to have here posted here for everybody. Now, the videos are going to be very short. The whole class would have been pretty short as it is. I mostly am just going to go over the syllabus in this video, talk about what we're going to do in the class, and then the next video is going to be a brief lecture on the first few chapters of the book. So anyway, so let's get started with the syllabus. So as I said before, my name is Sean Jones. You can see my email, jones39@matc.edu. My office, I haven't been assigned one yet. We're only in the second week, and they haven't gotten around to that. So once I have that, I will get that posted on the syllabus and on Blackboard. My office hours are Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 2, and Tuesday, 12 to 2, Thursday 3 to 5. Those are both going to be in Oak Creek. As of right now, those are both going to be in A124 until I'm assigned an office. So until further notice, you can just come to the classroom during those hours if you need to speak to me about something about the class. So that's it about me. Required texts. We are going to be using the Managing and Troubleshooting PCs 4th edition by Mike Myers. This is an older book. It was released in 2012, and there are used copies available at Amazon and in other places online. It's also available in the bookstore. It's very important that you have this book because we will be doing a lot of work from it. The quizzes that you'll be doing will be taken directly from the book. And there's an awful lot of really good information in the book. It's a few years old, a little bit of it is outdated, but really the bulk of it is still pretty pertinent. And it's one of the best books on A+ that we have out there, which is why we make you buy the very large, heavy book. The other thing that we are going to require that you purchase is the PC Pro Lab Sim from TestOut. Now, there are tutorials online. I have a link to them in Blackboard. If you go to the Student Resources tab, you will get to Pat Fader's website where he talks all about all the different things that students have available to them. One of them is Lab Sims. It's very important. You don't necessarily have to have it installed your first week. I just need to make sure that you have a copy of it. So starting the second week, you can start doing the assignments from the Lab Sims. So I will go over that actually the first week of in-person class next week, next Thursday, September 10th. I will be going over the Lab Sims in detail, showing you how to get in and what you need to do if you have not used Lab Sims previously. So those are the two required texts. The textbook, the Managing and Troubleshooting PCs, and the PC Pro Lab Sim. Now, if you buy it online, you need to make sure you get Lab Sim English 4.1.0. There are a couple of different ones. Make sure you get that one. Again, it's here in the syllabus. You can see it. So, how this class is going to run. Every week, you're going to have some sort of work due. There's an awful lot of content in this class. It is not a hard class. None of the content that we're going to talk about is tricky or difficult, really, but there is a lot of it. You have a 4-credit class that really could be a 6-credit class. It could be 2 3-credit courses. In other campuses it is, but we don't want you to spend even more time in school here. And the material is, as I was saying, not challenging, so you can learn this in the semester that we have, but it's going to require a good amount of work. Every week you are going to have some homework. The homework is going to essentially be the Lab Sims. I'm not going to make you be turning in any other assignments. You will just be required to do the Lab Sims every week as your homework, along with reading the material. Every week you will have a review quiz. It's going to be a relatively short quiz, about 25 questions each time, and it's just going to be on the stuff we covered the previous week. So in other words, this first week I will be lecturing on chapters 1 through 3, and before the next class on September 10th, you will need to have taken the quiz number 1, which will cover the material on chapters 1 through 3. Now, these are online, they're in Blackboard. There is no time limit. You can save it and come back to it. You can take as long as you want on these quizzes. So don't feel like you have to sit down and get them all done in a half hour or anything like that. You can use your book, you can use any resources you want when you're taking these quizzes. We just need you to get them done. The purpose of these quizzes is basically to reinforce the material that we think is important for you to learn. Obviously we are going to be grading you on the quizzes because we do need some way in which to grade you, measure how much you've learned. But the quizzes are really meant to be just reinforcement for this material. There's a lot of them, though. There's going to be one every week for the most part. You will not have a quiz on the week that you have an exam. That seems like common sense, but there are professors that have you do both. We won't. If you have an exam that week, the exam is all you're going to be worrying about. Which leads me to the next point, the exams. There are going to be 2 exams. There will be a midterm exam and a final exam. They're both going to be in your regularly scheduled class time. You come here, you sit down, you take the exam, and you're done. The midterm exam on October 22nd is a 100-question exam. It's timed. You have 2 hours to complete the midterm exam. So it's a fairly long exam. It's open book. Again, you can bring in notes. You can bring in your book. I will just caution you that you will not have time to finish the exam if you're looking up every question. So you need to have studied and have a pretty good idea of the answers to most of these questions when you go in. But don't panic if you can't remember a little detail. I want you to have notes. I want you to have resources that you can look up during these exams. The final exam is twice as long in both senses. It's 200 questions instead of 100. And it is a full 4-hour exam. It's a marathon. You're going to see as we go along throughout the semester, you're going to understand what's going to be expected on these exams because the exams are going to be exactly like the quizzes that you're taking. In fact, they will be pulling from the same pool of questions. So there will be no surprises for you. You are going to know what kind of questions to expect, and you're going to know the format by the time you get to these exams. So they're long. I can't say they're wonderful experiences, but they're not as bad as they sound. You have to take both of these exams and complete at least 90% of the lab sims to pass this class. And that just goes without saying. If you have 100% on everything else but you miss one of these exams or you don't do 90% of the lab sims, you're going to fail the class. The reason we do that is, 1, the exams are that important, and 2, the lab sims, to me, are one of the most important parts of this class. A+ is a hands-on class. We are trying to train you to take certification exams, 2 certification exams, hardware and software, that require that you have equivalent of 18 months of field experience. Well, if you're taking this class, you don't have 18 months of field experience, and so we need to get you as much hands-on or simulated hands-on training as we can, and that's where the lab sims come in. You're going to be doing a lot of virtual labs. You're going to be answering a few questions. They have a couple quizzes built in, but most of the lab sims, what we want you to do is do the labs, do these virtual labs, and get a feel for how to work on these machines, how to troubleshoot these machines, what they look like, what the ports look like, what the inside of a machine, what all those parts look like, things like that. So the lab sim is very important, and that's why we require that you complete 90% of them. There are a lot of them, and I will, when we get in class next week, I will go over these and I will show you exactly what is expected of you. For this week, don't worry about them. I just want to make sure everyone has them, so you don't have to do any. If you want to get started early, go right ahead, but I'm not going to be getting on you and asking you to work on the lab sims until I have a chance to sit down and show you what I want you to do. Now, if you take and pass both the A+ certification exams, because there are 2, this maps to 2 separate certifications. If you do that within 3 weeks of completing this class, and you have a C- or better grade, which most people, if they're able to pass the certification exams, they're going to have better than that as a grade. If you do this, you get an automatic A. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you had a C or a B, anything. If you take and pass both of those exams within 3 weeks of the class ending, you will have an automatic A. Now, I'm going to talk a lot more about the certification exams in person, so That's all I'm going to say right now. I would not try and count on getting an A by passing these exams because they're long and there's 2 of them. So anyway, I needed to explain that to you so that when I start talking about it in the next few weeks, you will all understand what I'm talking about. The next point I want to talk about is the grading. The course grading will be calculated by the following weights, and this is essentially there are going to be points. You're going to get points for everything, and 15% of these points is going to be your class attendance and lab participation and completion. I don't physically take class attendance. I don't sit down and write people's names down. However, the labs that we give you have to be done in class and have to be submitted in class. And if you're not there and you're not there to submit them, well, then I know you're not in class, right? So the labs are going to essentially combine some hands-on work, which is, again, very important, and class attendance. It's really important that you don't miss too many classes. I understand things happen, people get sick, there are emergencies, but you can't fall behind in this class. There's a lot of material, and I keep saying that, and you're going to start seeing what I mean when we start getting through the semester and you start going through some of these lab sims and some of the readings in the book. You're going to see there's a lot of material. So 15% class attendance and lab participation, 15% the weekly review quizzes that I mentioned. Those are really, you're going to be taking the first one before we meet for the first time, and you're going to see they're not that bad. They're relatively short, and they're to the point. There's no trick questions or anything like that. 25% of your grade will be the lab sims. Lab sims, this is where you can really make up points in your grade. Lab sims essentially are pass-fail. If you do them and you finish them, that's an A. That's 100%. So basically, if you are going to pass this class, if you get 90% of your lab sims done, you have 25% of your grade right there. So again, we think it's important, so we give you a good portion of the grade tied to that. The midterm exam is going to be 20%. The final exam is going to be 25%. Now, that sounds like a lot, but again, as you go through the course, you're going to realize you're going to know this stuff. The stuff that we're going to be asking you is not going to be anything that's going to trick you. And I've never had anybody bomb either the midterm or the final exam. And I've taught this class a number of times. So that is the grading scheme. Let's get into the schedule very quickly. As you can see, I have laid out in the syllabus every week we have the topics that are going to be covered, we have the assignments that you're going to have, and then the due date. So for example, this week, which is the week of September 3rd, we are covering the first 3 chapters of from the book. The assignments are to read the chapters, to register for the lab sim, as in purchase the lab sim and get it registered in your name. Please use your MATC account to register for the lab sim. There are people that have in the past used any number of personal accounts, and we have a very hard time getting them into the right course because they have multiple accounts and so on. So please use your MATC ID. Your MATC ID is basically your email address, your MATC email address, the left-hand side of that. So we'll need you to read the chapters, register for the lab sim, and then there will be the quiz. That is all that you have to do for this week. And it's going to be due September 9th at midnight, which is Wednesday night. It's right before the day that we have our following class. And that's the way everything is going to be. As you can see, everything is always going to be the Wednesday night before our next class. Now, late assignments, I don't accept them, period. You cannot turn in a quiz late. You cannot, if I have some lab sims, you need to get them done on time. Now, the reason I don't let you turn in quizzes late, there's 2. One, I've been saying you cannot get behind in this course, and so if you start not doing quizzes, start getting behind in your quizzes, you're going to be worrying about those rather than worrying about what we're going to be working on in the following week. So that's 1. And 2, deadlines matter. In the real world, when you guys go out and get jobs in tech, in IT, you can't be late. You cannot turn in anything late. You can't show up late. If you do that, you're not going to have a job. And I know that school is a little bit different, that you have jobs, you have other things you have to do. I accept that. I understand that accidents are going to happen, things are going to happen, you're going to oversleep, you're not going to have time, you're going to have a lot going on in a week, and you're not going to be able to get to your quiz, things like that. That's okay. I work into the grading process basically a bunch of opportunities for you to not do the work if you absolutely can't do it. I will drop, and this is going to be on a later page in the syllabus, I will drop your three lowest quiz grades and your three lowest lab assignments. Okay? So you have an extra 3 opportunities throughout the semester to either just do poorly on something because you didn't have time or you didn't understand it or whatever happened, or to actually just not do it if you can't, if you don't have time to do it. So, let me reiterate. You cannot turn anything in late. I will not accept late labs. I will not accept late quizzes. Lab sims, I want them done. I'm not gonna tell you you can't complete more lab sims if you don't get them done on time, but we really want you to stick to that schedule. But I will drop your lowest 3 scores in both quizzes and lab assignments. Okay? So, as you can see, as we go through the semester, you're going to have different topics to go through, and then we're going to have labs. The in-class labs are going to be the second half of the class. This is a 4-hour class. That's very long, especially on Thursday night. The first half of it, probably a little less than the first half, is going to be lecture. I'm going to talk about the materials that we're covering. We're then going to take a break. The second half of the class is going to be lab work. You're going to be pairing up with a partner. You are going to be working on labs, whatever the labs are going to be. For example, some labs we're going to have you taking apart a desktop computer, pulling it apart, seeing what's in it, literally pulling the whole thing apart, putting it back together again, and starting it up, making sure you did it right. Other times we'll have you making a network cable from scratch. We'll go some wire. We're going to have some RJ45Ns. We're going to have you make a network cable. Sometimes you'll be using other tools like live boot CDs and things to do troubleshooting and perform certain actions on the computer. It's going to be hands-on. Everything that we do in this class is real-world, hands-on work. The lab sims are meant to enhance that, but the whole point of this class is to give you a chance to actually work with this material, to work with the physical components, because it's the only time you'll get that. Every other class that we have, with the exception of some of the other repair classes, the new repair classes like the mobile repair, you never touch hardware. Everything is virtual. And that's not the way the world is. The world is physical. We have computers we have to fix. And so every lab, you're going to be doing something different, and you're going to be doing hands-on work. And so that's why it's really important when I say you don't want to miss class. You really don't, because this is the only time you're going to get this opportunity to basically not worry if you break a computer when you go in to try and fix it. So, with that being said, you can see here in the schedule we have the midterm, which is 8 weeks in, on October 22nd, and then the final exam December 17th, the last day of classes. Otherwise, you will always have a quiz, you will always have some readings, you'll always have lab sims, and you will have labs, in-class labs, with the exception of the last week before the final exam. There will be no lab unless we decide that we want an extra lab. If you want an extra one to help with grades or whatever, then I might add one. Otherwise, we're just going to have the 12 labs. Okay? So, that said, this is the weekly schedule. The last thing I want to cover is the lab sim module schedule. Now, if you look at the schedule, obviously our first week we don't have anything due. The second week, this means starting September 10th, I want you to be working on the lab sims in modules 1.1 through 1.4 and 2.1 through 2.3, and so on and so forth. Every week you're going to have a group of lab sim modules that you need to complete. You'll notice some weeks you have more than others. Some weeks you have an awful lot of them. That's just the way it falls. Sometimes there are more lab sims for certain topics. None of these lab sims are terribly long, so when you see, for example, November 26th, which happens to be Thanksgiving week, you see that whole list of lab sims that won't take nearly as long as it looks. There will be some work done, but most of those are pretty short. On the other hand, there are some that have multiple parts to them that will take longer to complete. So this is the only homework that I'm giving you for this class, are your lab sim modules. I don't ask you to take anything else home. So be prepared to spend some time on them. And again, I'm going to go through them in more detail on our first in-person class. Finally, the grading scheme. You're going to be getting points for everything you do. Quizzes are worth 150 points maximum. Labs are also 150 points. The Midterm is worth 2,500 points, or 2,000 points, excuse me. The final exam is worth 2,500 points. The lab exam is worth 2,500 points. It's going to add up to a little over 10,000 points. Now remember, I'm dropping some scores, so it will add up to more than 10,000, but dropping the 3 scores will bring it right around 10,000 points, which is how we're going to grade. And so you can see as we approach the semester end, you can start calculating how many points do I have, how many points do I still have left that I can get, what is my grade looking like. I don't do a curve. I've never had to do a curve in my class. Routinely, at least half the class gets an A. Not because I'm an easy grader, but because, like I said, this material isn't that difficult and it's kind of fun, honestly. And so I have never had a situation where people were not understanding or not doing the work. It's a fun class, and I have no problem giving A's to everybody if everyone earns it. You know, earning it is really showing up. If you show up and you're doing the work, you're here working on the labs, and you're taking your quizzes and doing your lab sims, there really isn't any reason why you wouldn't be getting an A or a B in this course. So, anyway, that is about it. The rest of the syllabus is going to be a bunch of MATC class policies that you can read. They're going to look exactly like all the other syllabi that you look at. I do want you, and this doesn't have to be this week, again it can be done next week, there is a Lab 0 that I have, and Lab 0 is signing, essentially saying I have read and understand the contents in this syllabus. Now, I'm going to request that you don't turn that in until we have a chance to talk next week, because if anyone has any questions about the syllabus, I want to answer them, because by saying I understand and accept the syllabus, you're basically signing a contract of sorts, you know, saying that, yeah, I get everything. Well, if you don't get everything, I want to make sure that we do. I want to make sure that we have I have a chance to address your questions, and so you do understand everything that we're going to do before you sign it. So that's it. That is my brief, I think that was like 20 minutes or so, syllabus talk for the class. We are going to meet in class, in person, next week, Thursday, September 10th, at 5:30 here on Oak Creek campus in A124. Now, the only other thing I'm going to have you do this week, other than your quiz, you will always have a quiz, I'm going to have a brief lecture on the material from chapters 1 through 3. I'm going to be recording that. It will be brief. It's mostly an overview, but there are a couple of very important points I want to make sure that I talk about before you go off and do your quiz and then promptly forget about the class until next week. So, that said, enjoy the early night, and I will look forward to meeting all of you next week.